For ASU, Jody, we got kind of a big game coming up here in 6 days still. When that game ended in Dallas, I knew it was going to be a while before they played again. But man,
it's been a while. Yeah,
it's been a while.
They're trying to stay. I'm sure they're doing everything they can to stay sharp. They're having their practices, and it's exciting. It's so cool. I mean, it is a huge buildup now too. But I'm sure all the fans I know locally here, there are some that maybe yesterday received news they were going. Maybe it was a Christmas present, but hopefully
that's a cool Christmas present.
Yeah, it is. I feel like that was kind of on the list. My husband and son are going, so it's kind of like, oh yeah. So when he's opening like his socks, you're like, wait, you're also going to Atlanta.
You can wear those socks to Atlanta.
Like, not a lot of huge purchases because you're getting on a plane in a few days. So
it's one of those things that look, I think ASU is going to do this. I'm going to say every year, but I think they're going to be in the college football playoff. Maybe I don't know what the number will be, but I think we're going to see them there fairly frequently for as long as Kenny's here, which could be for a while. But right now, it's still a once in a lifetime opportunity because it's never happened before. ASU's never been in the college football playoff. Now they might go right back next year or the year after, but right now it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I'm ready for this game to start at this point. And we talked about this a lot going into the game in Dallas or Arlington, but it's Cowboy Stadium, so I'm going to say Dallas for the purposes of this conversation. When I got there, everybody's like, it's not Dallas, it's Arlington. I was like, there's Cowboy stuff everywhere.
I know that whole, same when I go with the D-backs to the Rangers, it's Arlington, because it's a nicely situated place between Dallas and Fort Worth, I guess. And that way it satisfies both sides.
Good setup right there too, with the Ranger Stadium and the Cowboy Stadium. So, but being out there, we were talking about that going into it. It's like, how big would it be even just for recruiting? To win that game, you're on the biggest stage in Texas, just in terms of fields, and you're going to go in there and win the Big 12 championship your first year in it. That's got to help with recruiting. Well, Jody, this would help even more if you go take the Longhorns out of the college football playoff. I know that's not why they're not lining up in that game. I'm sure Camp Scadaboo's not like, hey, if we win this, it'll help recruiting, but it will help recruiting if they take out the Longhorns.
Oh yeah, and the Longhorns are kind of that team that is at the heart of football in Texas. There's so many schools. Like when I have friends from Texas, it's usually a smattering of like a couple went to Texas Tech. There's some Texas A&M. I mean, there's so many, and football's so huge. But Texas, the Longhorns are kind of the heart of all that, right? Yeah. And so many kids grow up, they want to, so I'm sure all their high school kids, maybe that's the number one school on their list. And so if ASU goes into this Peach Bowl and beats the Longhorns, or, maybe even, I know a win is all that's on everyone's mind, and a win is the focus, and a win would be that thing that would really shake it up as far in the minds of recruits. But even a good showing is, okay, this is a team that is at the top of college football. They're elite. They belong. But yeah, it's so interesting, just all those games that we watched through that first round, and it's just a long process. That's the thing about this playoff is that, and everyone knew that going in. That's just the nature of having the 12 teams. But it would be great for recruiting in Texas. I think in general, though, just what Kenny Dillingham and what the team has done this year in general is fantastic for recruiting across the board, across the country. But all eyes are going to be on this one, against the Longhorns.
Because you can do all these great things, but you need to get on recruits' radars too, right? And probably even more so than just a call. Like, we can sit here in Phoenix and be like, well, yeah, that 97 team that went to the Rose Bowl, that's great, that's odd. Well, probably most 17-year-olds in Texas that's not at the top of their mind. You know what I mean? and even what you've done this season, if you're ASU, we've seen this. This is probably why Cam Scadaboo didn't get invited to New York as a Heisman finalist, because ASU wasn't really on anybody's radar nationally. Not nobody's. Nick Saban was talking about them for a while, but wasn't on like just the general public's radar nationally until probably 3 games ago, somewhere in that range. And so again, if you're a high school recruit in Texas, of all places, you're probably focused on the Longhorns. Or, I don't know if you've seen this, Jody, you probably have. I've seen a lot of it. There's a lot of fans in Texas who hate the Longhorns and
that's true.
Are suddenly ASU fans because they just want somebody to beat the Longhorns.
Yeah, that's true, because they're polarizing that way with, being as good as they have been through the years. And so, yeah, ASU, it's funny with Scattaboo too, it became kind of a thing with the broadcast teams that did the games. You'd see the analysts then come out like through as the year went on, and they'd be like, this Cam Scattaboo is unbelievable. And just, he was a big find because kind of nationally he was. And that's just kind of built. And then Nick Saban talked about him. And then, obviously on all the national shows, now that they're in the limelight, they're part of this conversation for the playoff. The whole thing is fantastic for, it has been, there are things that are going to change. Maybe some of those matchups, maybe they'll see it a little differently in the future. But all in all, a big win for college football. And because of the fact that in its first year, ASU is there, huge win for the Sun Devils.
Yeah. I would say, because I agree with you, they're probably going to change some of the seating. If they do that, I really hope they get the rankings right. You know what I mean?
Well, it's never going to be perfect, and we know that.
Oh.
So it's just, I think it's how do you make those games a little more competitive? They really weren't, except for the Texas Clemson game, which was, I think, a really good game. And showed that, showed some things about Texas that we thought, the defense they look really good, but Clemson did move the ball in pockets. And so, yeah, the rankings.
I just if I'm fine if you want to go down that path where the top 4 seeds who get a bye week don't have to all be conference champions. I'm fine, but I don't want that to open the door to, okay, good, we can put all SEC teams in there. Like, great.
Right.
Like, how about you be responsible with this? If we as the college football fan base are like, sure, go ahead, you can take it. Like, ASU should not be the 12th team in this playoff, and that's where they would have wedged them. They would have wedged them behind Clemson and Boise State and Indiana. These teams that ASU is clearly better than. Now, if you want to say ASU shouldn't be the 4 seed. Fine. I'm not saying ASU has earned the 4th best spot in college football, but if they win this week, they're in the Final Four, so maybe they have.
Right. That will tell a lot of people, including us, I think, will tell us a lot about this team. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is there is still an incredible SEC bias. You still hear it. You hear it all the time, even as these guys are doing the games. I mean, it's pretty blatant by ESPN.
I'm hoping... fingers crossed. I think a lot of people are. I think that's why there's a lot of people in Texas rooting against Texas in this game is that maybe goes away with all the NIL and transfer portal. Like maybe it's never going to go away, but maybe over time that levels out a little bit. Like that's the good byproduct of all the movement, because I just, my only fear with the whole, we're going to take the conference champions and just the top 5 get in, but they don't have to be the top 4 is 3 years from now, the 4 teams with bye weeks are going to be Georgia, Alabama, see who else. Auburn will probably be good, and LSU.
Maybe LSU, yeah. Just like 2010 and all of that.
And then Paul Feinbach's going to be losing his mind with
I think the other thing is, look, it's just if you take yourself out of the fact that it has been fun to watch these teams rise up and have the seasons that they've had, whether it's SMU, whether it's Indiana, Arizona State. So there is an element of that to have some new blood in there. But I think, when you see the outcomes of those games, and that's why it's so important, I think, for this game to be competitive or even, I just don't know. I don't quite know what to expect from this game. So
as much as I think Boise State is very overrated because of one great player, it would really help, I think, college football as a whole if ASU and Boise State win in the next round, to be honest.
Thanks for watching Wolf and Luke. Tap to see more and click the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.